very good morning and welcome to this edition of Inside Politics with me, Fred Indimuli. Yes, it is that time again. So much happening in the world of politics. The supreme battle, and as we await the hearing coming this week, there's also the elections on Monday, as well as the new county regimes. 45 governors were sworn in last Thursday. These are the topics we'll be looking at on this edition of Inside Politics. But first, let's take a look at the various responses that were filed by the individual IEBC commissioners and which form the headlines this Sunday. Tower of Babel, that's the big headline on the Daily Nation this week. Same story also on the Sunday Standard. Explosive revelations. It was the Tower of Babel yesterday as IEBC and its bosses made serious claims in their responses to Raila Odinga's challenge of the presidential election. These are some of the stories we'll be looking at. Let's see this report as filed by Daniel Kariuki.
Raila Odinga and Martha Karua's first and second petitioner in the 2022 presidential election petition before the Supreme Court have listed individual commissioners as respondents in the petition. The four dissenting commissioners, led by Vice Chair Juliana Cherera, Commissioners Julius Nyagaya, Irene Masit and Francis Wanderi, accusing the Commission's chair, Wafula Chebukati, of not following the laid-down laws in announcing the results and going ahead to declare the president-elect without the tally of 27 constituencies. The four, in their response, giving their account of events at Bomas, with each commissioner giving reasons leading to their individual resolve to disown the presidential results that were announced by IEBC chair Chebukati. Chebukati finding himself on the receiving end. In her response to the presidential petition filed Saturday, Commissioner Irene Masit submitted that the presidential election held on the 9th of August 2022 was marred with several instances that did not depict transparency, and particularly on the part of IEBC chair. Masit accused Chebukati of denying all the other commissioners an opportunity to exercise their constitutional mandate, thus rendering the presidential election unverifiable. The second commissioner, Francis Wanderi, also filed his response Saturday, claiming Chebukati announced his own presidential results, which was not verifiable. Wanderi, who has been listed as the seventh respondent in the petition, in his affidavit says the results did not receive an approval by all commissioners. He went on to say, and I quote, "Between 1:20 p.m. and 4:20 p.m., Chebukati, while constantly walking in and out of the boardroom, kept us waiting and eventually walked back into the boardroom and read to us his own final results." End of quote. On Friday, IEBC Vice Chair Juliana Cherera claimed there were varying and conflicting figures in some Form 34A and Form 34B. In her 104-page affidavit, Cherera said that most of the constituency results given by the chair to the commissioners to announce were handwritten, which required verification for entry into Form 34B, and that the Form 34C was not available for the commissioners. Her colleague, Justus Nyagaya, on his part, claimed 3 IEBC staff worked in cahoots with a foreigner to intercept and alter the original contents of Form 34A. The commissioners pointing fingers at the chair, saying Chebukati usurped their constitutional role of verifying and tallying the results and went ahead to announce the presidential election winner without following the due procedure. So, how will the affidavits of the dissenting commissioners shape the case scheduled to start next week? Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
Yes, and of course, Wafula Chebukati also filed a response to the petition. And we'll be discussing all this with my panelists this morning. We have Rita Oyer, communication strategist. Good morning, karibu sana.
Good morning.
Dismas Mukua, political risk analyst. Good to have you in studio.
Thanks,
and lawyer and political strategist Ishmael Nyaribo. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, of course, there's a lot to be discussed, and I know the temptation is actually to prosecute the matters here, but we will leave that to the court because it's coming up this week. The issues are many. There's a lot to be discussed. Well, the good thing this time around is that at least we have leeway to discuss these matters. We've been allowed to talk about them, so we run no risk of offending the court. But you look at the headlines this morning and it raises a very fundamental issue. We are smack in the middle of an electioneering period. It should be over. We should be on the other end, on the other side. But no, we are not. We still do not have a substantive president. And the process going on currently is what will give us that. But even as we await that, we're looking at this electoral body, IEBC, and the kind of behavior exhibited that has been well captured on the dailies this morning. Tower of Babel is actually that phrase has been used on both dailies on the front page. One is a big headline, the other one at least has been captured in that title there. But what does this make you feel, Rita? The fact that the IEBC, right in the middle of an electioneering period, they're speaking at cross purposes.
I'm just surprised that everyone is acting surprised. This is the same IEBC that we have been saying there's a problem. There's a problem. Who is addressing the problem? Right from when Chebukati got into office, there were issues that were raised because he was not even the best performing candidate. When Cherera came into office, there were issues that were raised. I would want any Kenyan to tell me Cherera was the most qualified as an ECD teacher to be the vice chair of IEBC. You can see all these commissioners have very strong political affiliations, and they were seconded and fronted by politicians. So when you see things like this happening in the context of what happened in 2017, why are we acting surprised? This is the same Chebukati.
Is it possible to have commissioners who have 100% apolitical?
This is the same. We have professionals in this country. They might be political, but their professionalism will take precedence over their politics. Not when you hire straight from political preference and political secondment. You expect this type of things to happen. This is the same Chebukati who was indicted by his own commissioners on the things that we are now seeing replaying themselves. That was 3-4 commissioners in 2017. Has the man changed in any way? Of course, we might say he's done a bit better when it comes to transparency. In terms of transparency of running this election. But what is it that has changed about the person called Chebukati and his management style for the past 5 years? So we are here acting surprised, yet we know these people, we know who seconded them, we know for who they represent in those particular offices. We know that IEBC on paper is independent, but at the back of it there's people calling shots. So we cannot act that we are very surprised with what is going on. People have masters to respond to.
Dismas, are you not surprised by this turn of events? The fact that the entire nation had actually vested their aspirations on this commission to deliver at least. People were very hopeful that this time around things would be done different because, yes, we knew some of these things will be challenged in court even after the election, but the magnitude of disarray within the commission itself, are you at least not shocked by that?
Well, I'm equally not surprised at all because I've had the opportunity to interact with a number of commissioners. But before we go there, long time ago when I joined this space in journalism, there was a fella from Uganda who came to train journalists in Kenya called John Agenda. He's highly celebrated in Uganda. And he said in the morning, if you see a DO with his hair unkempt, looking all bad, driving a Land Rover at a very fast speed, is very furious, you need to start asking yourself what is happening. So the same thing we must ask ourselves, what is happening at IBC? What is the backstory? Can we look at the hippo's nose? Now, when you look at all those affidavits, if for a moment we believe what Chebukati is saying, and for a moment we believe what the chairperson is saying, then Kenya as a nation, we are courting disaster. Because Chebukati has made very serious allegations that some of the most powerful people in Kenya wanted the presidential results moderated. And moderated is a euphemism of denying Dr. William Samoei Ruto his victory. Because according to those affidavits, the CEO walked into the room and said these are the final results. And the results suggested that William Ruto is the winner. And the responsibility of Mr. Chebukati is to declare Dr. Ruto the president-elect. But he was told, calm down, wait a minute, let's moderate this. And the same affidavit suggests that Honorable Amos Wako said that this has been happening in the past. So there's a suggestion there that all the elections that have been taking place, at least on a presidential level, have been moderated. So that the people who have won have not been declared winners, and the people who have lost have been declared winners. In my view, that is so serious. Then secondly, the vice chair says that the presidential elections were conducted in a manner which is very opaque. One would have expected that in her affidavit, she actually declares to us what is opaque about this thing. But the chairman indicates that the Form 34A have not been compromised, have not been contaminated, that he had a responsibility to declare the president-elect despite all this pressure. So one wonders, who are we going to believe? Is it Chebukati or is it the deputy? I think now that is the elephant in the room. Okay. But in as much as it's the elephant in the room, in my view, whoever becomes president of Kenya, whether it's going to be Dr. Ruto, whether it's going to be Raila, whoever is going to become the president, we must have a special investigations, because that place at Bomas of Kenya, the National Tallying Center, seems that a lot of crimes have been committed, which could border, and the lawyer would elaborate, which could border on treason and sedition. There are a number of commissioners want to step on the wheel of Mora, as Mora has declared a position at the polling station. Okay. I think that is really the elephant in the room.
Wakili, listening to Dismas, and you would be forgiven to imagine that all this, the petition plus the affidavits and the responses, are intended for the Kenyan to actually look at them and decipher and actually come out with
it is true, actually,
a final verdict. But no, this is supposed to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but
we've all become lawyers now.
You see, you cannot control climate. You cannot control environment the way it is. I mean, you can try to put some measures so that it's friendly to us. But the truth is, the cat is out of the bag, and we can see what has been going on. And I want blanketly to say that everything they're saying is true. Everything about,
including the denials and everything,
these people are writing is correct and true. In fact, it makes the Supreme Court's work to be quite a bit, easy to agree with the commissioners across board, and also reject some of their amendments because they contradict each other, and especially where there is no evidence. Then, of course, now the court will make its own finding. But I read Chebukati's affidavit, and he says they were to meet at 2 p.m. and they could not meet because apparently there was a delegation from the Security Council, Security Committee, that came to meet him. And by that time, the 27 constituencies' results had not been brought in, either tallied, but they had not been shown to the commissioners. Immediately after completing the meeting with the committee, Security Committee, Hussein Marjan, this is Chebukati's words, walked into the room and handed over the results. So what Chebukati is saying is true. I believe him. That's exactly what happened. And when I listen to what Cherera is saying, it is also true. It is true that they did not have the occasion to look at the verification at the tally. And it is also true that the commissioners were not involved in tallying those results. This is my understanding, of course. And like you said correctly, Justice Tande allowed us to make these comments. But the learned judges will have to ponder quite a bit in terms of, there's nobody lying. If you say that Senior Counsel Mbobu and Amos Waiko and Kihara came to the, I don't doubt Chebukati on that. And whether they came in to tell him, we want to be aware, that is National Security Committee. We want to be aware what's going on. I am not sure they are precluded, whether they are stopped from coming to know. Remember that the commission is mandated to inform a sitting head of state of the results. So what they are not telling us, actually, they are hiding 2-3 names, but this is quite sensitive, like this man said. So just singing a song but refusing to repeat the chorus does not make it correct. So I think the Supreme Court will do us a great favor as a nation to analyze those things with a view to bringing out completely new directions, directives and orders on as to how the election should be held.
And of course that determination will happen probably in the next at least 8 or 9 days to come. But the fact that we are approaching this petition for the very first time with a split IEBC, because election petitions have happened since 1992. But back then, the ECK went to defend itself before the court as one unit. Even in subsequent election petitions, IEBC has always had one lawyer in court. This time round, we are seeing each of the individual commissioners, some of them getting their own legal representation before the Supreme Court. And this is going to be very interesting, because you're going to see IEBC, the commissioner, the IEBC chairperson's legal counsel, let's say Chebukati's legal counsel, coming up against Cherera's legal counsel before the Supreme Court. What does this portend?
Okay, so that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. One, it's good that they are taking individual responsibility for the roles and the oaths that they saw when they got into office. However, when we look at IEBC as a body, there's a corporate responsibility. I cannot go into a meeting, to a board meeting with my CEO, and I am contradicting them. There should be space where this type of conversations are had. So maybe we should look at IEBC as an institution and interrogate what dispute resolution mechanisms do they have. Okay, we know the decisions, how decisions are made, but if there's conflict and serious conflict like this, what other mechanism do they have out of the public eye that is still legally binding that they can pursue? Because like we're saying, every of those commissioners has an individual responsibility, took an individual oath, and therefore they have full agency to represent the will of the people as they see it. But ultimately, they are in the commission under an organization, and therefore we should then look at that organization and see, does it have mechanism and structures of where we have such differences, what happens. And this brings to light someone like Rosalina Kombe. She made quite a bit of suggestions in her report when she was exiting. The former commissioner. Yeah. One of them was there's too many centers of authority in IEBC. And Parliament received that report. What did they do? Because her suggestion was, why do we have a CEO? Why do we have a chair? Those are two different centers of power. So when people are making decisions, do they know, okay, it's safer to align with this one or it's safer to align with this one? So some of those recommendations, and again, I keep saying the last parliament has been one of our weakest link as a country. It has been one of our weakest link, and we should keep calling them out. And I hope the parliament that has come in behave better, because they had room to sit with the Chebukati, look at this report, guide IEBC into making some of this, to incorporating some of these decisions. And Chebukati himself, as much as at this point, I can say I'm also just looking at how the thing plays out, but he has been, in my view, quite a bit of a disappointment in terms of how he has owned his role, how he has owned his leadership, and how he has absorbed and even in humility accepted the challenges that came from the 2017 election. I think he didn't process that and the gravity of that for him to make the institution better. I cannot say for sure that on the people element, on a management level, Chebukati went out of his way to use the learnings and the indictment and the exit of the other commissioners plus the report to make the people management of that institution better, to strengthen it. I cannot say confidently that that leader called the chair Chebukati made an intentional step to move IEBC forward and to make it a stronger institution in terms of managing the people, managing the processes, and even managing the internal infrastructure of that organization. He did not take that job seriously. And that is why you can hear people making certain arguments, like, why is it mandatory for the person leading this organization to be a lawyer? Mm-hmm. What special skill, what special management skill does a lawyer have? Because this is a body that can employ as many lawyers as it wants. Mm-hmm. So at a CEO level or at a chairman level, are you looking for technical skills or are you looking for an organizational management skill? And is Chebukati fit for that purpose? And I do remind Kenyans at this point, out of the people, all the people interviewed, to be chairs of IEBC. Chebukati performed the list and Uhuru pushed for Chebukati to be appointed.
Okay.
So we had better qualified people, and we have to recognize IEBC is an organization that has to be strengthened and developed internally for it to function externally.
Okay.
What we are seeing right now is a serious management problem.
Chebukati's term is coming to an end in the next few months. I think by December, January, he'll no longer be a chairperson of the IEBC. The current drama we're seeing is very interesting. Actually looks like a thriller, and it will entertain Kenyans for at least the next 1 week. But there are serious concerns, but because the outcome of the court could present possible points of action for the commission to carry out, with the kind of splits that we are seeing and which will play out in the court this coming week. If at all the court directs the commission to undertake another electioneering project, probably a rerun or a repeat election, do you think this commission, as currently behaving, will be able to deliver that?
In my view, if the Supreme Court finds, again for the second time, that maybe there were illegalities and irregularities and orders for, and then there's a nullification, we'll get into a challenge, because ideally we'll have 60 days to have another election, but 60 days are not enough to remove all these commissioners and get in a new team. And even if you get in a new team within 60 days, I doubt whether they'll have capacity to run an election, because they have to go through the entire process, which probably requires around 6 months. So in my view, if the Supreme Court comes up and says that we nullify this election, the earliest time we'll have a presidential election in Kenya is going to be next year around this time, because you cannot go back to another election with the same infrastructure. But Rita has raised fundamental issues which we can't ignore. Why do you have a conflict at the board level? You have commissioners here who are supposed to reflect the will of Mora at the polling station. Where do you have a conflict? Could it be of pecuniary interest? And in the affidavits, there's a suggestion that a number of commissioners were told that if you moderate these results, there may be a pecuniary benefit, that some millions, cash would transfer hands. And in my view, we should encourage public bodies like IEBC and encourage the directors or commissioners to go to the top of Mount Kenya and bring out all these conflicts. Because of what has happened at IEBC today, we now know that for a fact, if you take Amos Wako's word to the bank, that prior results have been moderated. So who has been the winner or the loser in that moderation?
Okay.
Then we've been told that these commissioners were told that please push for this thing so that we have a runoff or you declare Raila Odinga as the president. And they accepted. The 4 of them accepted. And the other 3 commissioners said, no way, we want the will of Mora reflected. So we need to start interrogating ourselves that whatever is happening at IEBC, is it actually a best practice in the government?
We will treat this as claims so far, because their merit or otherwise will be determined by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
But just before we go on a break, let me give you a minute or so to comment on this.
I just want to say this, Fred. In paragraph 81, I think, of the Chebukati's affidavit, he actually walked out. He said himself that I refused to have any discussion relating to this moderation. Now, moderation, again, as we have said, is just an allegation. But he walked out. So, and Rita is raising very critical issues. Is that how you handle crisis? If there is a crisis in the boardroom, do you just stand up and say, here now I walk out? And then he went to the podium to announce the results. I think I agree with Rita when she says lawyers are not necessarily the best managers in the world. I mean, we are good. Definitely. We understand people's disputes, we understand problems, and if you are a keen observer as a lawyer, you can make a very good manager. But like she says, it must not boil down to the fact that the reason why I think the Constitution, puts this standard that a person should be a lawyer, the assumption is when you see National Security Council has come to you using your legal understanding and prowess, then you must understand the mandate. That is an institution which is independent. Then the way you reply to it, the way you handle them, the way you tell them off should be within the law as well. But this kind of baby crying actually on media through these affidavits, I think it's, there's a story, a biblical story, I was taught as a young person, where 2 mothers, one, held a child. And the king, the judge was asking, who do I give? Each one is holding the legs, another one the head. And one of them said, cut in between. But the mother of the child said, no. Let her have it. If the National Security Committee can candidly reply in an affidavit. Because you see, there is a communication, and I, at my age, I am sure there is a communication going on elsewhere that is not put in these affidavits. Because the president-elect is William Ruto. We are not being told how he was informed to come to Bomas of Kenya, that the results are over, now we want you to come. So we are not being told those details. So if the security team decides to reply, but they cannot, because they are the mother. They don't want to have the country go up in flames because certain communication to Chebukati from any other quarter is not being said.
They've not been cited as responding to any of the petitions.
It has not.
So
I'm just...
Take a break. Before you take a break,
15 seconds.
Yeah, in those affidavits, again, we are told that a lady by the name Tabitha Mutemi was told to inform the presidential agents to invite their candidates for 3 o'clock for the announcement. So everybody knew. Even yourself, you knew about that.
Gentlemen, I know we still want to debate who was right, who was wrong, and I still insist we will leave that to the Supreme Court. That's the only reason, the main reason why we have a Supreme Court in this country, and that is where we will leave the conversation for today. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the Monday elections, at least 2 governors' elections happening tomorrow, that is in Kakamega and Mombasa, plus 4 other constituencies which will be electing their members of the National Assembly. How will this impact on the current power balance in the National Assembly? That after the break.